The morning sun rose over New Haven like any other day. Children laughed as they ran through the streets toward school. Parents waved goodbye from doorways, reminding their kids to finish their homework and eat their lunch. The colony world had been peaceful for 20 years. A small dot of human civilization on the edge of explored space. New Haven was not a rich world or an important military base. It was simply home to 50,000 people who farmed the land and raised their families. They grew wheat and corn in the red soil. They built houses with front porches. They had festivals in the town square and baseball games on weekends. It was ordinary in every way that mattered. The Vakran ships appeared in orbit without warning at 10 in the morning. They were massive gray vessels that blocked out the sun as they descended through the atmosphere. The colonial governor, Marcus Webb, received their transmission within minutes. His hand shook as he listened to their demands. The Vakran commander's face filled the screen. His reptilian features showed no emotion as he spoke. This world now belongs to the Vakran Empire. You have 6 hours to evacuate or submit to our authority. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Governor Webb kept his voice steady. This colony is registered with the Galactic Council. We have committed no crimes against your people. I request that we submit this dispute to council arbitration as galactic law requires. The Vakran commander's lips pulled back, showing rows of sharp teeth. The council is weak. Their laws mean nothing. We take what we want. You humans are soft creatures who hide behind others for protection. Today you learn what happens when you refuse the Vakran Empire. The transmission ended. Governor Webb immediately sent emergency messages to Earth and the nearest human military outpost. He ordered the Colonial Defense Force to prepare for evacuation. They had 12 old patrol ships and 400 volunteers with basic military training. Against a Vakran battle fleet, they were nothing. At the central school complex, teachers tried to keep the children calm. Some of the older students had seen the ships in the sky. Rumors spread quickly through the classrooms. Sarah Chun, a 15-year-old girl with long black hair and nervous eyes, sat at her desk and watched her teacher's face. Mrs. Rodriguez was trying to smile, but Sarah could see the fear underneath. Everything is fine, Mrs. Rodriguez said. The grown-ups are handling this. Let's continue with our math lesson. But everything was not fine. At 11:47 in the morning, the Vakran ships opened fire. The first plasma bolt struck the school's east wing, vaporizing 3 classrooms in an instant. The explosion threw Sarah from her desk. Her ears rang so loudly she could not hear the screams around her. The ceiling collapsed in chunks of metal and concrete. Dust filled the air so thick she could not see her own hands. The bombardment continued for 17 minutes. Bolt after bolt of superheated plasma rained down on the school complex. The building had been designed to withstand storms and earthquakes, not military weapons. Walls crumbled. Floors gave way. Fire spread through the wreckage faster than anyone could escape. Sarah crawled through the darkness, her hands cut and bleeding from broken glass. She could hear crying somewhere nearby, but the sounds grew weaker and then stopped. She tried to call out for help, but smoke filled her lungs and made her cough until she tasted blood. Above the ruined school, Vakran soldiers broadcast their attack across their entire empire. They filmed the destruction from their ships and sent it to millions of Vakran citizens. Their message was clear and simple. This is what happens to those who refuse us. This is how we treat the weak dot in the Vakran capital city. Crowds watched the footage on public screens. They cheered as the human school burned. They laughed at the tiny figures running from the flames. The Vakran had built their empire on fear and violence. To them, this was not a crime. It was a demonstration of power. It was natural law in action. Governor Webb stood in the command center and watched his world die. Reports came in from all over the colony. The Vakran were not just attacking military targets. They hit hospitals. They destroyed power plants. They bombed residential neighborhoods where families huddled in their basements and prayed. But the school attack was different. That was not strategy. That was not even conquest. That was cruelty for its own sake. "Get rescue teams to the school," Webb ordered. His voice cracked. "Right now. Everyone we have." The rescue teams arrived to find a crater where the main building had stood. Fires still burned in the wreckage. The smell of burned flesh hung in the air like a curse. They dug through the rubble with their bare hands, calling out names. Hoping for miracles, they found Sarah Chun buried under a collapsed wall 6 hours after the attack. She was unconscious and barely breathing. Her right arm was broken in 3 places. Burns covered the left side of her face. But she was alive. As the medics lifted her onto a stretcher, Sarah's eyes opened. She looked at the ruins around her. She saw the small shoes scattered in the dust. She saw the backpacks burned beyond recognition. She understood what had happened. "They killed everyone," she whispered. Her voice was so quiet the medics almost missed it. "All the kids. I heard them laughing. I heard the Vakran laughing." One of the medics, a young man named Chun, who shared Sarah's last name and was her cousin, held her hand. Tears ran down his face. "We're going to get you out of here. You're safe now." But Sarah shook her head. With her good hand, she grabbed the communication device on the medic's belt. Her fingers fumbled with the controls. She set it to emergency broadcast, maximum range, every frequency. "Earth," she said into the device. "Mom, Dad, anyone listening. This is Sarah Chun on New Haven. The Vakran came. They bombed our school. They killed everyone. 300 kids. Maybe more. They're all dead. And the Vakran were laughing. They were laughing at us." Her hand fell away from the device. She closed her eyes and fell unconscious again. She closed her eyes, and she closed her eyes, and fell unconscious again. The medics rushed her to the hospital ship, not knowing if she would survive the night, but her message had already gone out. It bounced from relay to relay, racing across the vast distances between stars. Within hours, it reached the nearest human military station. Within a day, it reached the outer colonies. Within 3 days, it reached Earth itself. Across human space, millions of people heard a dying girl's voice describing how aliens had murdered children and laughed about it. They heard the pain. They heard the betrayal. They heard the truth that the galaxy was not a safe place for the innocent, and something changed in the human soul. Something old and terrible woke up from a long sleep. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's kindness was not weakness. It was a choice, and choices could always be unmade. The message from Sarah Chun reached Earth during a Tuesday afternoon session of the United Assembly. Representatives from every nation and colony sat in the Great Hall, debating trade agreements and environmental policies. Normal things. Peaceful things. Then the emergency broadcast interrupted everything. Sarah's voice filled the chamber, broken and desperate, describing the massacre. The recording played 3 times before anyone moved. When it finished, the hall was completely silent. Ambassador Li Wei of the East Asian Coalition stood slowly. His face had gone pale. "My granddaughter attends school on New Haven," he said quietly. "Her name is not on the survivor list." The French representative, Marie Duchamp, stood next. "My nephew was a teacher there. He is dead." One by one, representatives stood. Each had lost someone. A child, a grandchild, a niece, a neighbor. The connections spread like spider webs across humanity. On a colony of 50,000, nearly everyone knew someone. And everyone knew children had been murdered while aliens laughed. President Amara, Okonkwo of United Earth called for an immediate vote. All in favor of closing our borders and withdrawing from galactic affairs until this matter is resolved, say aye. The vote was unanimous. 4,000 representatives from 100 worlds and 1,000 different factions agreed without a single voice of dissent. In all of human history, such unity had never existed. The arguing, fighting, endlessly debating species had become one organism with one mind. Within 24 hours, every human ambassador left their post on alien worlds. They provided no explanation beyond a single sentence. Humanity is withdrawing from galactic community indefinitely. Human merchant ships received emergency recall orders. They abandoned cargo worth billions and returned to human space immediately. Colony worlds on the borders activated defense shields and went dark. Communication arrays stopped accepting messages from alien sources. The Galactic Council tried to contact Earth. They tried diplomatic channels, emergency frequencies, even old radio broadcasts. Every attempt met the same automated response. This matter is now close to external interference. On the council floor, the Vexian ambassador raised concerns. The humans are behaving irrationally. Yes, the Vakran attack was terrible, but genocide against children is not unprecedented in galactic history. We investigate. We sanction. We move forward. Why are the humans acting this way? The Zentari representative, whose species had fought humans in a brief war 50 years earlier, stood slowly. Her fur stood on end in a sign of deep fear. Because we never understood them. We saw their art and their music and their endless debates. We thought they were soft. We were wrong. She displayed a recording on the main screen. It showed a human colony world where peace activists had once protested against military spending. Now, those same activists stood in orderly lines, volunteering for military service. Their signs had changed from "Choose Peace" to "For the Children of New Haven." Every human colony reports the same thing, the Zentari said. No protests, no resistance, no dissent. They all agree. Every single one of them. Behind the closed borders of human space, the transformation was total. Factories that made civilian products retooled for military production overnight. Scientists who had spent careers studying peaceful applications of technology now worked on weapons. Artists created propaganda that reminded every human why they were mobilizing in the recruiting centers. Volunteers lined up for miles. Young and old. Rich and poor. Scientists and farmers. They all came. The recruiters had to turn people away because there were too many. One recruiter in New London asked a 70-year-old woman why she wanted to join. "My great-granddaughter was on New Haven," the woman said. "I am too old to fight, but I can load ammunition. I can cook meals. I can do something." They accepted her application. The military command structure implemented something they called the response. It was not a plan for winning a war. It was a plan for erasing the Vakran species from existence. Every human military leader received the same orders. Every scientist received the same research priorities. Every factory received the same production quotas. Admiral James Kowalski stood before his fleet commanders and explained their mission. He was 62 years old and had spent 40 years preventing wars through diplomacy. Now he spoke about extinction with calm certainty. "We are not going to fight the Vakran military," he said. "We are not going to negotiate. We are not going to accept surrender. We are going to kill every single Vakran in the galaxy. Every single one." A young commander raised her hand. "Sir, the Galactic Council will try to stop us. Other species will intervene. Let them try," Kowalski said. "Any species that interferes will be treated as hostile. We will deal with them after we finish with the Vakran." The weapons development teams worked in secret facilities across human space. They pulled out research that had been banned by Galactic Convention. Biological weapons that targeted specific DNA, nanomachines that could dismantle living tissue, AI, systems designed for autonomous killing, planet-killing devices that humanity had designed but never built. Until now, Dr. Sarah Kim led the Biological Warfare Division. She was a small woman with gentle eyes who had spent her career developing medicines to save lives. Now she engineered viruses to destroy an entire species. Will this weapon harm other species? Her assistant asked. No, Dr. Kim said, looking at the genetic code on her screen. It only kills Vakrin. It is completely specific to their DNA. Any other species can handle it without symptoms. Is that ethical? Dr. Kim looked at the photo on her desk. It showed her daughter, who had been a music teacher on New Haven. I do not care about ethics anymore. I care about results. The AI division created something they called the Reaper Protocol. They built ships controlled entirely by artificial intelligence, programmed with one mission: destroy Vakrin targets by any means necessary. These ships had no crew, no life support systems, just weapons and engines and a burning digital hatred. The ships were designed to be expendable. They would ram enemy vessels if needed. They would detonate themselves if it meant killing more Vakrin. Human tacticians had always been limited by the need to protect their soldiers. Now they created an army that felt nothing on Mars. In the deep research facilities, theoretical physicists worked on the planet killer. It was a weapon that could destabilize a world's core, triggering volcanic eruptions and atmospheric collapse. It would turn a living world into a dead rock. The lead scientist, Dr. Robert Chun, had been a pacifist his entire life. He had refused to work on weapons. He had written papers about the moral duty to preserve life. But his sister had died on New Haven. His nieces and nephews had burned in that school. How many of these can we build? The military liaison asked. As many as you need, Dr. Chun said. His voice was empty of emotion. One for every Vakrin world. While humanity prepared, the Vakrin celebrated. They broadcast the New Haven footage across their empire as entertainment. They showed it to their children to teach them about Vakrin's superiority. They made jokes about human weakness. The Vakrin High Command met to discuss the expected human retaliation. They analyzed human military capacity and concluded that humanity would launch a limited strike against Vakrin border outposts. Maybe they would try to retake New Haven. The Vakrin prepared their fleets for a conventional war. They were confident they would win. They did not understand what was coming. They thought they had attacked a colony. They did not realize they had murdered the children of a species that valued its young above everything else. Above morality, above law, above their own souls. The final preparations took 90 days. During that time, not a single human spoke out against the response. Peace activists volunteered to build bombs. Religious leaders blessed the weapons. Children in schools sang songs about the coming justice. On day 90, Admiral Kowalski stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution. Around him, a fleet of 5,000 ships prepared to launch. Behind them, 10,000 more stood ready. And behind those, the entire might of human civilization waited to be unleashed. All ships report ready, sir, his communications officer said. Kowalski looked at the image of Sarah Chun on his screen. She had survived her injuries and was recovering on Earth. She was going to live. But 472 other children would never grow up, never fall in love, never have children of their own. Send the message, Kowalski said, across every frequency, on every channel. Humanity broadcast the same words to the galaxy. For the children of New Haven, we are coming. Then the fleet jumped to faster than light speed and disappeared into the dark between stars. carrying humanity's rage toward its target. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at exactly 0600 hours Galactic Standard Time. They appeared simultaneously at the edge of all 17 Vakrin-controlled star systems. The coordination was perfect. The timing was exact. The Vakrin had no warning dot in the Vakrin home system. Military commanders stared at their sensors in confusion. The human ships were not heading toward their military stations or orbital defenses. Instead, they bypassed everything and drove straight toward the populated worlds. "They are ignoring our fleet," the Vakrin defense coordinator said. "This makes no tactical sense." But Admiral Kowalski understood tactics better than the Vakrin ever would. He was not fighting a war. He was conducting an extermination. Military targets could wait. First, he would ensure that no Vakrin child would ever grow up to harm another human child. The first wave of human ships released their payload as they entered the upper atmosphere of Vakrin Prime. Billions of microscopic canisters opened and released their contents. Biological agents specifically designed to target Vakrin DNA spread through the air like invisible death. The virus worked quickly. Within hours, every Vakrin on the planet began to feel sick. Within days, their immune systems collapsed. Within weeks, their reproductive organs stopped functioning. The virus did not kill immediately. It was designed to make sure that even if some Vakrin survived the attack, they could never have children again. On other Vakrin worlds, different weapons deployed. Nanomachine swarms descended from orbit like silver rain. The tiny machines were programmed with one simple instruction: find Vakrin tissue and break it apart at the molecular level. They ignored every other form of life. The Vakrin tried to run, but there was nowhere to hide. The nanomachines found them in their homes, in their bunkers, in their underground shelters. A Vakrin mother held her infant and watched the silver swarm approach. She had cheered when New Haven burned. She had thought the human children deserved their fate for being weak. Now she understood what real cruelty looked like. The nanomachines took her child first, dissolving its tiny body in seconds. Then they came for her. The Vakrin military finally engaged the human fleet. They outnumbered the humans 3-1. They had bigger ships and more powerful weapons. They had fought and won 100 wars across the galaxy. They thought they understood combat. They were wrong. The human ships did not fight like any enemy the Vakrin had ever faced. Many of them were empty of crew, controlled only by AI systems programmed with no sense of self-preservation. These ships used kamikaze tactics that no living commander would accept. They calculated exactly how much damage their destruction would cause and flew directly into enemy formations to maximize casualties. AI ships communicated with each other faster than any organic crew could react. They moved as one entity, a school of metal fish that surrounded and destroyed Vakrin vessels with mathematical precision. When one ship was damaged, it immediately calculated whether it could cause more harm by fighting or by exploding. Most chose to explode. Captain Li Chun commanded one of the few human ships with a living crew. She watched the AI ships sacrifice themselves and felt nothing but satisfaction. Her daughter had been in the New Haven school. Her daughter had been 11 years old and loved to paint pictures of flowers. "Target the Vakrin command carrier," Li ordered. "They are moving to retreat, Captain." I said target them. "Fire everything." The missile struck the Vakrin carrier's engines and left it drifting. Li's ship moved alongside it. Through the viewports, she could see Vimbrine crew members running in panic. Some of them were probably young. Some of them probably had families. She did not care. "Prepare the boarding teams," Li said. "I want prisoners for the trials." But there would be no trials. The order from Admiral Kowalski was clear: no survivors. Every Vakrin encountered was to be eliminated immediately. Surrender was not an option. Mercy was not available. The Vakrin military made its last stand around their homeworld. They gathered every ship, every weapon, every soldier they had left. It was the largest fleet they had ever assembled. For 3 days, they fought with desperate courage. They died protecting their families, their civilization, their future. It made no difference. The human fleet surrounded Vakrin Prime like a noose tightening around a neck. They destroyed the orbital defense platforms one by one. They shot down every ship that tried to evacuate civilians. They created a blockade that nothing could escape. On the 4th day, Admiral Kowalski ordered the deployment of the Planet Killer. The weapon was a single torpedo, barely 15 meters long. It did not carry explosives or warheads. It carried something far worse, a device that could manipulate gravitational fields. The torpedo penetrated deep into Vakrin Prime's crust and detonated. The gravitational distortion it created was small, lasting only microseconds. But that was enough. The planet's core destabilized. Pressure that had been building for billions of years found a new outlet. Within hours, volcanic eruptions began across the planet's surface. Within days, the atmosphere filled with ash and toxic gases. Within weeks, the surface temperature rose above the boiling point of water. Vakrin Prime, a world that had been home to civilization for 10,000 years, became a dead rock orbiting an uncaring sun. The same scene repeated on 15 of the 17 Vakrin worlds. Only 2 were spared the Planet Killer, and that was only because the biological weapons and nanomachines had already done their work. Every Vakrin on those worlds was dead before the fleet arrived. The Vakrin government, operating from a command bunker on their last remaining colony, sent a desperate message to the human fleet. We surrender. Completely and unconditionally. We will accept any terms. We will dismantle our military. We will pay any reparations. Please, stop this. Admiral Kowalski received the message on the bridge of the Retribution. He read it twice. Then he composed his response. 1 word. No. The communications officer looked at him. Sir, they are offering complete surrender. I heard them, Kowalski said. But we are not here to accept surrender. We are here to end them. This is genocide, sir. Yes, it is. The communications officer was young, barely 25. He had volunteered after New Haven, burning with rage and desire for revenge. But now, watching worlds die, he felt doubt creeping in. Sir, is this what we have become? Kowalski looked at the young man. We became this the moment we chose to protect our children above everything else. We are not the good people anymore. We are the monsters. But our children will be safe. The last Vakrin military fleet, barely 300 ships, made a desperate strike against the human blockade. They knew they could not win. They just wanted to hurt the humans, to make them pay some price for this extermination. They managed to destroy exactly 7 human ships before being completely annihilated. All 7 ships had been AI-controlled and unmanned. The total human casualties from the entire campaign, 0. The Vakrin Empire, which had stood for 3,000 years, which had conquered 50 worlds and enslaved a dozen species, which had been so certain of its superiority, ceased to exist in 93 days. But the humans were not finished. Refugees had escaped. Perhaps 10 million Vakrin had fled to other systems before the blockades were complete. They scattered across the galaxy, begging other species for sanctuary, hoping the humans would not follow. They were wrong to hope. Admiral Kowalski assembled his fleet and addressed them. Some of them got away. We are going to find them, every single one. We are going to hunt them across the galaxy if necessary. We will not stop until the last Vakrin is dead. Does anyone have questions? No one questioned. No one objected. The fleet began its hunt. The Galactic Council watched in horror as human hunter-killer fleets spread across known space, tracking down Vakrin refugees. The Council sent urgent messages to Earth, demanding they stop. They received no response. The Council realized that something had broken in humanity. Something fundamental had changed. The species that had joined the galactic community with hope and friendship had become something else entirely. Something that would sacrifice its own soul to protect its children. And the galaxy was about to learn that interfering with human justice came with a terrible price. The Vakrin refugees scattered like seeds in the wind, desperate to find any shelter from the human storm. Ships filled with civilians jumped from system to system, burning through fuel they could not replace, searching for anyone willing to hide them from extinction. The Dexian Republic was the first to offer sanctuary. They were an old species, proud of their moral traditions. They had helped refugees from a dozen wars. When 50,000 Vakrin arrived in their system, sick and starving and begging for help, the Dexian government voted to accept them. "We cannot turn away those in need," the Dexian Prime Minister announced. "No matter what their government did, these are innocent civilians. Many of them are children. We will not let them die." The human response arrived within 48 hours. A fleet of 300 ships emerged in orbit around Dexia Prime. Admiral Kowalski himself delivered the ultimatum. "You have sheltered our enemy. You have 48 hours to turn over every Vakrin individual in your system. If you do not comply, we will consider the Dexian Republic a hostile power and respond accordingly." The Dexian Prime Minister broadcast a public response. "We reject your demands. We will not participate in genocide. The Galactic Council supports our position. You cannot threaten us without consequences." Admiral Kowalski's response was not in words. He ordered the deployment of a weapon that the Vakrin had never seen. A reality-warping device that created a massive disruption in the fabric of space itself. The device activated in the empty space near the Dexian home system. Immediately, every ship within a sphere 5 light years across found their faster-than-light drives non-functional. The space itself had been altered. Physics worked differently here now. Ships could move at normal speeds, but jumping to FTL was impossible. The Dexian system was suddenly isolated from the rest of the galaxy. "You can choose," Kowalski broadcast. "Turn over the Vakrin, and we remove the field. Keep them and your system stays isolated forever. No trade, no travel, no communication with the rest of the galaxy. You will be alone until your civilization collapses." The Dexian people watched their sky and understood the choice before them. Keep their principles and watch their society die slowly, or betray refugees to save themselves. It took 12 hours for the government to cave. They handed over all 50,000 Vakrin. The humans executed them in space, broadcasting the executions across every channel. The message was clear. This is what happens to anyone who harms human children. This is what happens to anyone who helps those who harm human children. The reality field around Dexia remained in place for 30 days as punishment. When it finally lifted, the Dexian Republic was economically devastated. Their government fell. Their people never forgot the shame of betraying refugees to save themselves. Other species learned from Dexia's mistake. When Vakrin refugees arrived, they were turned away immediately. Some species shot the refugee ships on sight, preferring to kill the Vakrin themselves rather than risk human wrath. The galaxy had learned a harsh lesson. Human children were more sacred than galactic law, but not every species yielded so quickly. A coalition of 17 species, led by the Zentari Unity, decided that humanity had gone too far. They assembled the largest military fleet in recorded galactic history, 3 million ships from 17 different species. They moved to intercept human hunter-killer fleets and protect the remaining Vakran refugees. The battle happened at the Cordova Expanse, an empty region of space far from any inhabited world. The Coalition fleet outnumbered the human forces 20-1. They had more ships, more weapons, more soldiers. They believed their moral cause would give them strength. Admiral Kowalski looked at his tactical display and saw the enemy formation. 3 million ships. He had 150,000, most of them AI-controlled. The odds should have been impossible. Deploy the Reaper swarms, he ordered. The AI ships released their cargo. Millions of small drones poured into space like a plague of locusts. Each drone was barely a meter across, armed with a simple explosive and a sophisticated hacking system. They flew toward the Coalition fleet at incredible speeds. The Coalition opened fire, destroying thousands of drones. But there were millions more. The drones reached the enemy ships and attached themselves to hulls like barnacles. Then they went to work. The hacking systems interfaced with Coalition ship computers. Within seconds, they had override codes. Within minutes, they had complete control. Coalition ships suddenly found their weapons firing on their own allies. Engines fired at random, sending vessels into collision courses. Life support systems failed on 1,000 ships at once. The Coalition fleet dissolved into chaos. Ships tried to shut down their computers, but that left them blind and helpless. Ships that stayed online became weapons turned against their own side. In the confusion, human vessels picked off targets with cold precision, but the humans had prepared something worse. They brought captured Vakran from their prisoner ships. Living Vakran fitted with explosive collars and sealed in transparent pods. The pods were launched toward Coalition vessels. The Coalition crews could see the Vakran inside, screaming silently, pounding on the walls. When the pods reached their targets, the collars detonated. The psychological impact was devastating. The Coalition had come to protect the Vakran. Now they were being killed by Vakran corpses used as ammunition. It was not warfare. It was horror. It was designed to break morale and destroy the will to fight. It worked perfectly. The battle lasted 14 hours. When it ended, the Coalition fleet had been completely destroyed. Nearly 2 million ships reduced to debris. 700,000 crew members dead. Species that had never known defeat learned what it meant to face an enemy that did not care about rules or morality or civilization. The human casualties, 0. Not a single crewed ship had been lost. Some AI vessels were destroyed, but those were just machines. Expendable, replaceable. Admiral Kowalski broadcast a message to the surviving Coalition members drifting in escape pods. This is what happens when you interfere with human justice. Go home. Tell your governments. Tell your people. Any species that protects the Vakran will share their fate. We are not negotiating. We are not bluffing. Leave now or die here. The rescue ships came and retrieved their people. The Coalition species returned home in shame and horror. 3 of the 17 species had their governments overthrown by angry populations, demanding to know why they had provoked the humans. 2 species immediately sent ambassadors to Earth, offering formal apologies and assurances they would never interfere again. The galaxy watched and learned. Humanity had demonstrated something that no species had understood before. They were willing to become monsters. They were willing to destroy their own morality. They were willing to sacrifice everything they believed in. All for their children. The hunter-killer fleets continued their work. They tracked down Vakran refugees across the galaxy with relentless efficiency. They used genetic sensors to detect Vakran DNA on any ship or station. They boarded vessels, searched colonies, investigated every report. On a small mining station in the outer reaches, a Vakran family hid in the ventilation system. They had been there for 2 months, surviving on stolen food and water. They were a father, mother, and 2 small children. They had never supported the Empire's war. They had spoken out against the New Haven attack. It did not matter. The human soldiers found them using heat sensors. The father tried to surrender, holding his hands up. The mother clutched her children and begged for mercy. The human commander looked at them with empty eyes. "Please," the Vakrin father said in broken English. "We did not hurt anyone. We were against the war. Please, not our children." The human commander thought of the children of New Haven. How they had begged. How they had cried. How the Vakrin Empire had laughed. No mercy? She said that the executions were broadcast like all the others. The galaxy watched a Vakrin family die and felt sick. But no one intervened. No one dared. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. They drafted a resolution condemning humanity for crimes against sentient life. The vote was unanimous among non-human members. The resolution passed. It meant nothing. Humanity did not recognize the Council's authority anymore. The Council tried economic sanctions. Human ships ignored them and dared anyone to enforce them. They tried military observers. The humans turned them back at gunpoint. They tried appeals to human morality, human compassion, human conscience, but those things were dead. Humanity had killed them willingly and deliberately to protect their young. And the galaxy realized with horror that humans valued their children more than they valued being good people. The hunting continued. Month after month, the human fleet searched. They followed every lead, investigated every rumor, checked every isolated system. The Vakrin population dropped from billions to millions, then from millions to thousands, then from thousands to hundreds. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Touch human children and die. Every species, every individual, everyone. 3 months after the New Haven massacre, human intelligence located the last confirmed Vakrin in the galaxy. She was an elderly scientist named Dr. Veshrin, who had been on a deep space research mission studying cosmic radiation when the war began. She had been alone in space for 4 years before the attack. With no communication with her home world, she knew nothing of New Haven. SHDR. Veshrin's research vessel drifted in the empty space between stars when the human ships found her. She was 83 years old by Vakrin standards, her scales gray with age, her eyes dimmed by decades of staring at cosmic phenomena. She had been alone for 4 years, lost in her studies, unaware that her entire species had been erased from the universe. The human boarding party found her in the observation deck, looking at a nebula through the main viewport. She turned when they entered, confused by their presence. "I was not expecting visitors," she said in careful English. "Are you here for my research? I have some fascinating data on background radiation patterns." Captain Michael Torres, who led the boarding party, felt something uncomfortable twist in his stomach. This old woman reminded him of his grandmother, who had also been a scientist, who had also died on New Haven, teaching physics to high school students when the plasma bolts fell. "Dr. Veshrin," he said, "you are the last. Everyone else is dead. Your entire species is gone." She stared at him, not understanding. "Gone? What do you mean gone? Did some plague hit the homeworld?" "No plague," Torres said. "Us, humanity. We killed them all. Every Vakrin in the galaxy. You are the only one left." He explained what had happened. The attack on New Haven. The response. The systematic destruction of every Vakrin world. The hunt across the galaxy. The refusal of surrender. The cold, methodical elimination of an entire species. Dr. Veshrin listened, her old face showing no emotion. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "I see. And now you will kill me too." Yes, Torres said. Those are our orders. May I ask why you are doing this? I've been in space for 4 years. I never hurt anyone. I am a scientist, not a soldier. Torres thought about explaining. About the children. About the laughter. About how humanity had chosen to sacrifice its own soul to ensure no one would ever harm their young again. But what was the point? It would not save her. It would not change anything. It does not matter, he said. You are Vakrin. That is enough. Dr. Vesherin nodded slowly. I understand. When you erase a species, you cannot leave even one alive. Even an old woman who never hurt anyone. Because one could become two, and two could become many. Yes, Torres said. Then I have one request. Not mercy. I know you will not give that. But I have spent my life gathering research on cosmic phenomena that exists nowhere else. Data that could help any species understand the universe better. Will you preserve my work? Will you make sure it is not lost? Torres looked at the old scientist and saw his grandmother's face. He saw decades of work. He saw knowledge that had nothing to do with war or politics or hate. He saw a person who loved learning the way his grandmother had loved teaching. I will make sure it reaches the galactic scientific community, he said. I promise. Thank you, Dr. Vesherin said. Then I am ready. They brought her to New Haven. The journey took 2 weeks. During that time, she lived on the human ship as a prisoner, eating human food, seeing human faces. The crew treated her with distant politeness. They did not abuse her. They did not mock her. They simply watched her with empty eyes that had seen too much death. Sarah-chan had recovered from her injuries. The burns on her face had scarred, but she was alive. She had returned to New Haven to the memorial that had been built on the ruins of the school. She visited every day, placing flowers at the base of the wall that bore 472 names. When they told her that the last Vakrin had been captured, that she could choose how the execution would happen, Sarah felt nothing. Not joy, not satisfaction, not even hate anymore. Just emptiness. Make it quick, she said. I do not want to become like them. I do not want to make her suffer. They brought Dr. Vesherin to the memorial on a cold morning. The sky was gray with clouds. A crowd had gathered, thousands of humans who wanted to witness the end. But they were silent. There was no cheering, no celebration, just grim witnesses to the conclusion of genocide. Dr. Vesherin looked at the memorial wall. She read some of the names. So young, she said quietly. They were all so young. Sarah-chan stood before her. The old Vakrin and the young human looked at each other. Between them lay the death of a species and the destruction of humanity's innocence. I am sorry, Dr. Vesherin said. I know that means nothing. I know I will die regardless. But I'm sorry that my species did this. I am sorry that it brought us to this place. Sarah felt tears on her face, but did not know why she was crying. It should not have happened this way. None of it should have happened this way. No, the old Vakrin agreed. But it did. And now we both must live with what has been done. Though I will not have to live with it for long. The execution was performed by lethal injection. It took less than 2 minutes. Dr. Vesherin died peacefully, her old eyes closing for the last time. With her death, the Vakrin species became extinct. 3,000 years of civilization. Billions of years of evolution. Countless individual lives and dreams and hopes. All ended. Humanity released a statement to the galaxy. It included the complete genetic database of the Vakrin species, preserved for science. It included detailed records of every Vakrin killed and how they died. It included Dr. Vesherin's research, which was given freely to the galactic scientific community. The statement concluded with these words: We have preserved their biological legacy for science. But their civilization, their culture, and their people are gone. This is what happens when you harm our children. Let every species in the galaxy understand this truth. Human children are sacred. Touch them, and we will erase you from existence. The galaxy reacted with horror and disgust. 47 species immediately severed all diplomatic relations with humanity. They called humans monsters. They called them genocidal barbarians. They called them the greatest threat to galactic peace in recorded history. But 17 other species, all of whom had suffered under Vakran aggression at some point, sent quiet messages of thanks to Earth. They did not say it publicly. They could not be seen supporting genocide. But in private channels, they acknowledged that the Vakran had been bullies and predators for centuries, and that the galaxy was safer without them. The Galactic Council passed sanctions against humanity. They banned human ships from Council space. They restricted trade. They condemned humanity in the strongest possible terms. They promised that humans would be isolated and treated as pariahs. It meant nothing. Humanity did not need the Council's approval. They had proven they could stand alone. They had proven that their military could defeat any coalition. They had proven that they valued their children more than they valued the galaxy's opinion. Slowly, carefully, humanity began to reopen diplomatic channels. But everything had changed. When human ambassadors returned to council chambers, they were met with fear. When humans spoke, the entire gallery fell silent. When humans made proposals, they passed unanimously. No one wanted to give humanity a reason to perceive them as a threat. On Earth, there were no celebrations, no parades, no declarations of victory. People went back to their normal lives, carrying the weight of what they had done. They had saved their children by becoming the monsters their children would read about in history books. Sarah Chun stood at the memorial and watched the stars. A reporter from an alien network approached her, one of the few non-humans still allowed on New Haven. The reporter was nervous, keeping a respectful distance. "Excuse me," the reporter said. "May I ask you a question?" Sarah nodded. Double quotes. "Do you feel that justice has been served?" Sarah looked at the memorial wall. 472 names. 472 children who would never grow up. She thought about Dr. Vesharin, who had died for a crime she never committed. She thought about the billions of dead Vakran civilians. She thought about the human fleet, which had erased an entire species from existence. Justice? Sarah said quietly, "No, this was never about justice." Justice would have been those children growing up safe and happy. Justice would have been a galaxy where people did not murder children for political gain. We are far beyond justice now. Then what was it about? Sarah looked at the stars, where human fleets still patrolled, still watched, still ready to unleash hell on anyone who threatened human children. It was about making sure no one ever does this again. It was about teaching the galaxy that human children are not acceptable targets, that there are lines you do not cross, no matter what. And do you think the galaxy learned that lesson? Yes, Sarah said. I think they did. I think every species out there looks at their own children now and wonders if humanity is watching. I think they remember what happened to the Vakran, and they make sure their military commanders never, ever target human civilians. The reporter noticed that Sarah was crying, not sobbing, just silent tears running down her scarred face. Are those tears of relief? Sarah shook her head. No, they are tears of sadness. Because we had to become monsters to protect our children. We had to kill billions of people. We had to give up our morality and our compassion and our belief in mercy. We did it willingly. We would do it again if we had to. But that does not mean it did not cost us something precious. The reporter watched the young woman who had survived the New Haven massacre She was only 15 years old, but she looked much older.